All right, guys, this is Chef Angry or the Angry Prepared Chef. I don't know what I'm calling myself these days. And I do know I'm a guy, right? I do know that. My pronouns are he, him, and wiener. Today we got Fatty West Side. We got DJ with us.
Well,
The last time we did one of these, it was me and Fatty West Side, and we talked gear, right? And in that, we talked about how gear is kind of contingent on where you're at, what you're doing. If you got this, right, which I've made some modifications to as of late, but if you have that, you probably have a uh, AR-15, assault rifle, AK-47. I personally have been thinking about getting an AK because people don't seem to like black guns, so I want to see about red guns. See if they'll make fun of me because I'm Indian, right? There's a joke in
Uh,
there.
how did
All
I
right,
know?
how did you know? I mean, I'm a white person in Georgia. Of course, I'm Indian. All right. So let's start off with you, DJ. What you want to start off with?
I'm game for whatever as far as topically, but when it comes to the METT-TC situation, region,
Oh, there it
environment,
is already. We're a
there it is
minute into
already,
this
right?
thing.
There it is
We're in a
already.
minute into this thing, and there we go.
Exactly. I mean, many different situations are different, but at the same time have a lot of same things continuity wise. Regions, environments, areas, a lot of differences there. Your guys' winters are not nearly as harsh as or as long as mine are up in the North Midwest, the far North woods, but you guys have a lot hotter temperatures, a lot more heat and humidity related things. We have a lot of humidity up here too, but
To be noted that Tennessee is like halfway between Georgia and you as far
right,
as there's still harsher weather. You just get a whole lot more snow than we do.
a whole lot more snow and deadly cold temperature, low temperatures. Yeah. So, but I mean, situations across the board, there's a lot of differences, but there's a lot of continuity. And with that, your various boomstick platforms
My favorite.
will end up tending to be somewhat similar, just with maybe a couple of nuances. If you're out in the mountains, probably something with a longer range, LPVO or scope or something is going to be more practical to use over somebody who's got dense
Mm-hmm.
woodland, a little bit more of an urban environment and things like that, where you're going to be using a rifle combat optic, an RCO, or a red dot magnifier combo. Like all those little gear nuances, it just depends on personal preference, apart from the environment that you're operating in. And with severe cold, I personally prefer to use short stroke piston system ARs. Um, they're just more reliable in extreme temperatures and in austere conditions in general. If I'm not running a short stroke piston AR, I'm running something like an AK platform, a long stroke piston system. If I'm not running something like that, I've got battle rifle options. I have an FAL, So I mean, it just depends on what the flavor of the day is, really. But when it comes down to it, for primary options, for a little bit lighter carrier load, more ammo capacity, opportunity, and things like that, yeah, I'm either going to be running this or
The AK,
this.
because
Yeah,
it was a good day.
exactly. Exactly. And that's just how it chalks down to it. And you notice with the AK, I'm not running an optic or anything on that. People need to learn how to use iron sights just as much as they need to learn how to use optics and stuff. I mean, marksmanship fundamentals matter. And being able to use a platform if that system goes down for whatever reason, crack the lens, it takes a round, whatever, the housing breaks on it, whatever it may be, you got to know how to switch back and forth. My 2 cents on it.
I knew that 762 was going to make it into your list. I knew it was.
I'm a, I'm
Like,
a, I'm a, I'm an FAL fanboy. What can I say?
I mean, it does take some form of integrity to be like, the enemy shot this at me and it scared me. So I mean, I'm gonna shoot at other people if I have to, right? I mean, like there's stuff like people want to talk about the AK, and I'm just like, I think that METT-TCs are actually like the best place to start, right? So what are you doing with the rifle, right? If the only thing you're doing is standing on an LPO in areas where you can see 3, 5, 600 yards, yeah, 20-inch, 3x18 LPVO. Actually, I don't know if LPVO would fall into, or I don't know if 3x18 would fall into the LPVO, but get something of that magnification, get a 20-inch, and honestly, if you want a light, I feel at that point you might be better off with a secondary light that's not on the weapon, that's like a floodlight or something that you can light an area up and kind of see what's going on. Red lens, green lens, stuff like that, so you don't kill your night vision. But yeah, METT-TC is a really good place to start because the rifle that you're going to hold on, if all you're doing is looking at areas 3 to 500 yards, that rifle might be very similar, but also very, very different than the rifle that all you're doing is living in, Atlanta and holding your apartment or your apartment complex, right? I almost bought a AR pistol a couple of weeks ago just to thumb my nose at Brandon and the homeboys. And I didn't, but I mean, for me in my current setup where I'm at, I don't know. I feel like you lose way more than you gain because I'm in the middle of nowhere, right? And we have those long standoff distances, and back to METT-TC and reality here. You're not going to be clearing buildings with 11.5-inch barrels day and night, night and day, because the moment you get shot and you can't get to a hospital in time, you're dead. Game over. Bye bye. And so you have to rewire your METT-TC and you have to rewire your brain because, like, right here, right now is 18 magazines, one in the rifle, and that can easily go up to, I think I can put 23 in there. But then I can take the little bag off and put a big bag on, do all sorts of stuff. Because when I was in Afghanistan, if you needed more ammo, you amazing taxpayers funded an amazing logistical system fueled by helicopters.
Yep.
And if you don't have,
it was the same. It was the same in Iraq too, because we kept a lot of extra ammo, spare mags, nut sacks, and stuff. In our day packs, our assault packs. We had stuff in our Humvees, and then if we needed resupply, right, the logistics train is a rolling. You don't get that in the civilian world.
No,
you got to bring that shit in yourself.
Yeah, and so like, do I have plates? Yes. Am I going to be really, really, really considering why I'm putting plates on? Yes. Right? Also, I live in the mountains. And if you live in the mountains and you have plates, do your wife a favor. For WRL, do your wife a favor. Put your plates on. Walk up the mountain. Because if you don't do it now, she's going to be a widow.
Yep.
Like, she's going to be a widow. So when you think about, to me, when you think about your rifle setup, the first question is, where are you at? The second question is, what barrel length are you going to do?
Right.
Before we talk about handguards and butt stocks, where are you at? What rifle length do you need?
Right.
Because I've been really considering, taking this rifle that's 14.5 pinned and welded with a 1-8 and turning it into selling it or trading it in and getting a 20-inch with 3x18. Because I don't want my wife, I don't want to have to close and engage somebody because I have marksmanship fundamentals, like you said. I have marksmanship fundamentals that I learned the hard way. And I can then engage somebody before they can even think about engaging me, and I get to go home.
Right. Right. Yeah, my mentality with it too is 16-inch barrel minimum usually. There are exigent
Yeah.
platforms for in a vehicle moving point A to point B, and some urban stuff, but I mean largely the urban environment CQC extended, not just room clearing, is going to apply there because everywhere's a fucking threat in the city. I know that ad nauseum because I've been to Iraq 6 times. Um, once in the army and 5 times as a contractor. So understanding the environment and what you need absolutely applies. So in my area, it's a mix. Like yeah, I live in a city, but I'm not planning on staying in the city unless it's that specific situation, whatever it may be. If it's not feasible, then I'm going to be moving out and 16-inch minimum barrel. And then I prefer RCO. So your ACOG, your primary arms, SLX 5x36. So like 4 or 5 fixed power, very much has the capabilities, much like an LPVO, where I can do stuff at range, but I can utilize it at closer ranges as well. So that the variable need with some of those core essential components for your rifle and maximizing performance and your survivability, absolutely, it comes into play 100%.
Yeah.
I'm dying to get in here.
Go for it.
Get in here.
So I'm a huge proponent of if you can only for for me when I was coming in as a poor, because I am a poor, I was like, if you can only get one thing, what would you get? And for me, the most obvious choice was the 16-inch. This is actually the second one because this goes into it. I got this thing first because I wanted something for the day to day to run at work and everything. I do work in a ghetto. And then like I got this one, and you on YouTube have been following me, have seen me evolve this one to the spray, the paint and everything. I actually have a surprise coming for this one, but I can't really talk about it yet. Um, and then I got the second one, which has a better barrel. I'm not going to paint it yet because I want to set this thing up exactly how I want it since I already have a painted one. But I feel like the perfect starter is a 16-inch. And I ran irons forever until I caught this red dot on sale for $50. So we're going to try it out. But I have a $40 magnifier that was actually like $130, but I got it on eBay. So I got a magnifier coming for it. We're going to see what we do as far as the paint scheme, but like it's METT-TC. I'm in an urban environment for 50 hours a week. I'm driving between urban and through suburban to the country for 10 to 12 hours a week. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm doing shit on the farm and mowing and all that stuff. I've always got in the woods hunting, looking for places to hunt, training. Like I've practiced running through the office with this. I hope they don't know that. I got there early sometimes, like an hour early, so I could run through and practice. I've run through and practice in my house. I don't want to do CQB, but like this is, I hate to say the do it all, but for the guy who's just starting out, this is the do it all. You know what I'm saying? This gets you in the game. And now, thanks to PSA, it gets you in the game cheap. So you can get in and then start updating shit as you go along. Like this is a chrome barrel. This is a radian charging handle. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not cheap, but it's cheap. I mean, I had to work my way up to it, but I think this is the everyman start. And then at some point, I will be caving on my adamant stance against the government, and I will be getting two tax stamps to run cans on both of these. And the camouflage one is going to run through the woods for me. And this one's going to run through the urban and transport for me. Um, until I can get another one. And I went back and forth like you, thinking about getting the smaller one. I've talked ad nauseum to DJ about this, about going smaller and bigger. Make whatever jokes you want about this. And I think my next rifle is going to be an 18 or 20 inch AR-15 or an 18 or 20 inch 308. But but if I do the one, I'll do the other one next. Like I'm going to have the long range for 77 grain 5.56, but I also want the 308, and I'll probably get the 308 first because I want the 308. But
Yeah.
For me, and everybody's favorite catchphrase, and it's already been said numerous times, but it's METT-TC. I think starting out with the 16 is perfect for people, and then jumping to the 18 or the 20 as you get into the groovier things is the way to go.
Well, one of the things I've noticed, I've been looking at 18s as of late, or I've been looking at 20s as of late. There's a super cheap market for 20s right now.
Yep.
Right? You can pick up a 20 for $500. And if you were going to get the same quality in a 16 or a 14 5-pin and welded, you're looking at $750, $800.
Dude, PSA is
And then if
selling
you
a
want to go
20-inch
AR
chrome
pistol,
line barrel with a radiant charging handle for less than $600. Like this is the time if you're going to get into the long rifle.
Yeah.
Now's the time to do it.
And I wholeheartedly agree. Now you brought up some stuff about 77 grain. So for those that don't know, the really popular ones are 55 and 62. And the reason they're really popular is because that's what the military used for a super long time. A bunch of units are now going to 71. I think at one point the Marine Corps was using 81, or sorry, a lot of units are going to 77. And the Marine Corps was using 81 at one point. In general terms, heavier rounds are more stable on longer distances. So if you're in that 600 yard standoff distance and you can get your hands on 81 or 77, go for it. But regardless, if you can get rounds on target, speaking from somebody that's been shot at, and speaking from somebody that's put friends on helicopters, nobody's looked at me ever and been like, I was shot with a small round. The dishonor, and they're like, holy shit, dude, I've been shot. Am I gonna die? I'm like, I don't know. But oh God, what do we do? Like, I know we talked about this, but what do we do? Anybody know? Right? And there's some jest in that, but really, I'm gonna say this, and this is a general rule of thumb. If you had $1,500 to spend, you need to spend $500 on the gun. You need to spend $500 on the optic, and $500 not on stockpiled ammunition, but on ammunition to get you familiar with that platform.
Yes. 100% agree. I agree.
I think it's okay to fudge the lines a little bit and depending and only spend like $350 on the optic and put a little bit more into the rifle. But yes, $1,500 is the minimum for getting something that you can use and get familiar with pretty quick for $1,500. Like that gets you a pretty good amount of ammo.
I don't care what rifle length you have. If you, most people here untrained civilians. They watch YouTube videos. They go out and they shoot a little bit. If you end up in a situation versus that guy, and you spent $500, if you spent a third of your budget on ammo, and you really learned that weapon system, and you worked on your fundamentals, and you worked on basic like moving it while shooting, and figured out what the difference between concealment and cover is, not only like from a textbook definition, but being able to look at something and go, this is cover and this is concealment. You're like, I'm not gonna say you will win, but that's who I'm gonna put my money on.
Yeah, you got a
Right?
better chance.
And yeah, so and I understand that being in the military, you have two massive advantages. One's logistics, two is funding. And so you see guys running around in the military with really nice plate carriers. And that's because they didn't buy anything else.
Right.
They didn't buy the rifle. They may have bought the optic, might have bought the optic, depending on what unit they're with. And they're not buying the plates because when I was in, if you bought plates and used those, you were going to captain's mass because you're using unauthorized armor.
Yep.
And so, that's a massive thing that we have to overcome as civilians, right? Which I am now, right? I'm no longer in the military. I'm a civilian, which means that I have my own budget. And so all of a sudden, this chest rig is superior to 99% of plate carriers because I can move with it, right? Because I don't have guaranteed vehicle to move me around. And it's not the vehicles, but it's the fuel, right? If something massive happens, right? Hurricanes happen 2 states over, and I can't get gas for a week at a time.
Yep.
So if the Chinese paratroopers invade, you're not getting gasoline, which means you're on foot.
Yep.
And so you have to keep that in mind when you're designing your rifle.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Basic warrior skills. So IMTs, knowing cover and concealment, all that core stuff, absolutely essential. And you're seeing more and more and more civilians training up on that kind of stuff by networking, getting groups together, going out and practicing, and the number of organizations out there that provide that kind of training to civilians now. One Shepherd being one of the longest standing. Super important, absolutely, to understand those things, apart from getting good with marksmanship, knowing your rifle, and having those logistical capabilities for your self-sustainment to that degree of effectiveness. And apart from that, you're absolutely right when it comes to vehicle logistics. And I have a whole series on that called Pace Route Planning, as it pertains
Good
to both
series.
vehicle. Yeah, thank you. As it pertains to both vehicle and on foot logistics for planning your routes and understanding your greater area, of operations. Because it's not just hurricanes. We don't get hurricanes up here, but we have blizzards, we get flooding, we get tornadoes. There's a number of things that factor in, and that's for every state. I know your state too, Chef. I know your state too. Flooding is a big thing, right? So that's a massive thing, because when routes are cut off, and that's access not only to fuel but also avenues of escape and insertion, exfil and infill, that's a problem. So you have to be able to plan for that and drill your movements, apart from basic warrior skills implementation. 100%.
See, and I have to go between, I spend the majority of my time in this state, but I'm really going between 3 states, between Florida and Tennessee. And yeah, that's a pretty vast change in scenery in the AO. So sometimes I need that more urban rifle to get, whatever, I'm going to the beach. And then sometimes I need that scoped that 1x4x8 by whatever rifle, because I'm gonna have to get out there and hit 600 and whatever. So METT-TC, you know, you gotta. I am a huge proponent of um, training up with one and then get a second one basically the same. You can make it a little bit different, but basically the same. Should one go down before you start just getting spare parts. I built this one first, and it also has just the thumb cap in the admin bag that this rifle would be running with. It's got the AMB. I don't even remember the brand, vertical grip. And it's getting a 1x4 put on it and a red dot. And then the irons are going to go 45. And this is going to be canned eventually. And this is going to be my Woods gun, 600-yard gun. And then this one was basically built the same way, just all Magpul instead of B5. And same light, exact same light, but I only have the cap on it. I have the pressure pad in the admin pouch that this rifle would normally run with. Same but different. You know what I'm saying? And this can still, fuck, they were clearing Fallujah with 18s. I think I'll be fine with a canned 16. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's good to
All right,
have
so real quick,
I think it's good to have it set up the same so you're familiar with it no matter which one you're using, and then you start stacking parts.
I 100% agree on that. So I think that we've come to the conclusion that, like your gear, your rifle setup is based on where you're at and what you're doing. And I will begrudgingly say that there is a niche market for the 10.3s and 11 5-inch barrels. I do think that for a general purpose rifle, 16 is more than likely the way to go. I say that as somebody that's highly considering turning their main rifle into a 20-inch. But it really depends on what you're doing. But once again, if you are setting your rifle up with a 10.3 and a red dot because you're going to kick in every door in your apartment complex, I hope that your hospital offers punch cards. And I hope that whenever happens that you're having to do that, it is very localized so that your hospital is still working.
Right. And your needs for a 20-inch are completely applicable, for your area, and you're not in a major metropolitan area, which is good, and a lot of those factors, like even with the shorter stuff, like 11.5s and stuff, really, with my experience, a lot of that niche there, and you're right in saying it's a niche, is for vehicle work. And then in my background with PSDs, with protective security detail work, executive protection, things like that, where there's a need for that concealability. Now, with the urban environment, yeah, there is a need for that concealability to an extent based on what you're doing. But again, in an urban environment, you're setting yourself up for some serious trouble if if you don't know what you're doing, or you're going out there with an intent that isn't sound in a matter of self-preservation, for yourself and your family. So,
yeah. Now, one thing that I do want to warn people about, and not even a warning, just like, you do what you want, right? This is America.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you you're free, especially when you're like running around with, I did stickers. I did this. This is me, Joe Biden. Fuck off. Eat dick. But one thing that I've seen as of late. So let me define some terms real quick. First focal plane, second focal plane in regards to magnified optics. So a first focal plane, as you increase your magnification, your reticle, your crosshairs, your whatever you got going on, that little dot that says put douchebag here, that thing, it gets bigger. Second focal plane, as you magnify, it stays consistently the same size. To me, most of the time, that's going to be the superior option. If you have a legitimate purpose for a first focal plane, disregard what I just said. But once again, niche.
Yeah.
Also, just side note, if you have an LPVO and it goes 1 to 10, you probably don't need to put that on a 10-3.
Right.
Maybe, maybe an 11-5, put a 1 to 6 on 11-5. There's some justification there.
I would probably put that on my 30-06, but
Yeah, yeah. In barrel length, much like the twist rate that you have on your barrel, I mean, that affects round performance. I mean, getting into the weeds about it, a 1 in 7 twist barrel, which is common for ARs, likes a heavier grain bullet. A 1 in 9-inch twist barrel, which is what I have on mine, it likes a little lighter grain bullet. It loves the 62 grain MA55 and the A1, so it's good to understand some of the weeds about performance and stuff, but then again, short of the barrel you go, you're going to have a lot more round deviation at range. So it's like, what is your idea? What is your rationalization for range-based engagement, and defense and everything? Because like, again, urban environment, it could be a simple 50 or 100 meters, but then at the same time, large metro areas, down streets, you're blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks, and before you know it, it's 1,000 meters.
Dude, I distinctly remember being in part of Helmand Province, Afghanistan, and going from essentially an apartment complex, like a condominium or something like that, and you walk out the front door, and like you said, it's a straight shot of legitimately 3/4 to a mile.
Yeah.
3/4 of a mile to a mile. And, all of a sudden your Navy SEAL top secret CAG operator 10-3 doesn't do a whole lot. But if you're running into the building, snatching a target and getting out, that 11-3 might be where it's at. Because,
vehicle work,
Yeah.
getting out of a city when shit hits fan, getting out of a city, something shorter is good for in your vehicle because it's easy to manipulate around that cramped area. Other than that, I mean, long ranges down these blocks and blocks and blocks in a city and whatever, or just from vantage points and stuff. I mean, linear danger area, you gotta try and avoid that, or you need to own that space, because otherwise you're in for the hurt.
And same thing with like your red dots. If you're going to do a magnifier, most red dots fall into 2 categories: 2 MOA, 4 MOA, and MOA is basically an inch at 100 yards. So 2 MOA means that you're putting a 2-inch wide dot on a target at 100 yards, and that 2-inch dot becomes 4 inches at 200, so on and so forth. So at 500 yards, it's 10 inches wide. 4 MOA dots, same concept, right? So 100 yards, it's 4 inches wide. If you're gonna do a magnifier, which I get it through all the rage these days, go ahead and try to stick to that 2 MOA. But once again, with logistics, if you're gonna get a red dot, right? I've ran red dots before; they have their place. If you're gonna get a red dot, you need to secure your batteries. And if you're going to get eliminated reticle on an LPVO, you need to secure your batteries.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, and like secured doesn't mean have a plan to raid the batteries are us. Secure your batteries means go to the batteries are us and buy them like today.
Yep.
Right.
Have a
and like that's one of the reasons I like a red reticle on LPVO. Like I've got 100 batteries, and that's not an exaggeration.
Yep.
I've got. Is that what that is?
It's an RCO, so it's a fixed magnification, 5-power fixed. This is the SLX, but it's ACS etched ACSS Aurora reticle. So with those, and reticles matter too, because like with that kind of reticle and some of your BDC reticles and some of your other mill reticles, you can use it. It's designed in a way where you can glass your target and you can estimate range of your target based on the grid that's there. That's what it's designed for, which is so freaking useful. And yes, I love Etch because have definitely have surplus of batteries, but having that etch, you always have that reticle, no matter what, unless it gets destroyed for some reason. You're always going to have that capability to not only range and glass your target, but also have an effective reticle for yourself with your optic. So it's, yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, basically, like worst case scenario needs to be as cushiony as possible.
Yeah.
Right. But also with LPVOs and even red dots and stuff, and I've seen this, you can buy an LPVO for $220 or $1,500, right? And I'm sure there's some that get a lot more expensive than that. You know, the the Swamp Fox arrowheads and your precision vortex strike eagles are
Yes.
falling into a lot of people's budgets. All of those have different models, right? So when you go physically buy yours, I'm going to make a recommendation that you go to a storefront and buy it. That way you can check out the throw lever, make sure it's a legitimate lever, not a knob. You can look at the reticle and make sure it's the one you want. The other thing, and I've seen this as of late, I'm going to tell you that getting a optic that doesn't have lockable turrets or better coverable turrets is a bad idea.
Yep.
Right. I saw a situation where we were hiking and dude had well, it's this optic right here. Right? It's the Swamp Fox arrowhead, and some of them lock. This one does not. And he tripped, and all of a sudden, click, 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 click. Okay, he's now combat ineffective.
Yep.
Because he doesn't know where those rounds are falling. And there are ways to, like, in the middle of a gunfight, if that happens, to figure it out. But why put yourself in that situation for $100?
Exactly.
Why are you going to save $100 just to put yourself in that situation?
Right.
Spend the $100, go buy the ammo, and like that's another thing. I don't think that people are aware until you do it how hard it is to walk while holding a rifle. Right? So go get your I tell people this with your gear all the time. Get your gear, put it on, move. Because like in my hands, this is a little heavy, not super heavy, but it's a little heavy. On my body, it's not, because it's falling on my shoulders and my hips, and But the same thing, move around with your rifle in your hands. Like, I'm not talking about clearing your house. I'm talking about walking up and down mountains, going and like, I want to say go up and down some streets, which you should be able to. But depending on the part of the country you're in, you may get the cops called on you.
Yeah.
And depending on who pulls up in that squad car, could drastically affect your day.
Yep.
I can tell you that I actually just had an interaction with local police in my home area, and during the time that we were talking, I was like, bro, are you from around here? And he's like, born and raised. And I was like, do you know where there's places around here to go train? And he's like, train how? And I was like, go shoot a little bit. And he was like, man, we've been all trying to find that. And he started telling me all the places to go, and like they're all like an hour and a half away. And I was like, there's nothing local. He's like, you got to find an owner, man. Someone who's got property to be able to go and shoot. And I was like,
Yep.
man, but if you can make those connections, now he knows that there's someone in the area that's like him because he wants to go do all that stuff too. And we like actually talked about it, and he knows where I'm at, the vicinity anyways. Like, well, finally, it only took 5 years to make that connection.
Now, depending on what state you live in, well, depending on the state you live in and the laws surrounding open carry, national parks folded those laws. So, Alabama says that you can walk around with an AR-15. Now, you walk around downtown Mobile or Birmingham, or I'm blanking on one of the towns I'm trying to think of, but you walk around one of those downtown metropolitan areas, you're going to get the cops called on you. Right? Just like it's not right, it's not wrong, it's life.
Yep.
And so depending on where you are, depends on how good of an idea it is. But you can go to a national park, and some of these national forests are massive. And I'm not saying do it because I don't know what the legalities of it are. But if you and 10 of your closest buddies, all got together and walked into the woods one day and didn't come out for 4 days, a lot of these parks, they're not going to find you, mostly because they don't care. Also, even if they did care, they don't have the manpower to go looking for somebody if they don't think you're legitimately a lost child.
Right.
See, I'm not going, I can't, I'm not going to get into where I hunt at, but I hunt on government property, unfortunately, right now, which during the hunting season is very populated, unfortunately, for the acreage that I'm on. Kind of pisses me off. But I I have family that lives in that area, and I'm over there all the time. And if I'm in the woods, if I'm in a video and there's woods behind me, or I'm in the woods, chances are I'm over there because that's where I hunt. That's where I track down to find the best place to set up for the next year. And that's where I monitor and see who's coming through. And like, I set up a blind in an area, and I started going in there, and my dad went in to check on it for me and check the area. When he came out, some guy was sitting there waiting on him. He's like, listen, this is open area. This is government land, like public land. I can't tell you what to do. But back here, we kind of have a code, and there's already a guy in a white vehicle that hunts this area. And I'm not saying you can't set up in there, but it's already kind of been taken. And he's like, no, no, that's my son. I was just checking on his blind for him or whatever. But like, so we all know what's going on. Unfortunately, that guy's not there anymore, and it's changed a little bit. But as long as I'm rocking the specifically modified 5-round magazine, I can walk around with it on public land. But I can only carry 5 rounds in this government land that I'm walking on, which is why the 30-06 is great.
Now, can you have it? Now, in that role of hunting, and I'm not a super avid hunter, but could you have a magazine with 5 rounds in the gun and then 10 mags with 30 rounds apiece?
As long as that 30 round is not in the gun, they don't care what you're wearing. And if you walk out of the woods and you don't have a magazine in it at all, but the one that's like the one you just pulled out of it that's in your hand is the 5 round, it's even better on you. During the hunting season, you're not allowed to have ammo in your rifle within 50 yards of the road. I'm supposed to take my rounds out of my 30-06 before I get to my car.
Yeah.
Yeah, that varies wildly by state. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, the first year I was there, I walked out and I didn't know that, and my dad didn't tell me. and there was a DNR guy waiting there, and he was like, "Is it loaded?" And I was like, "I mean, no, the bolt's open, but it's got like four more in the bottom." And he was like, "No, if you could like point it that way, and then eject him at the hood of the car." But after that, man, he was telling me where the best crappie fishing areas were and shit. Like they know my dad. It's unfortunate that they get to shadow me the way they do, but dude, I run through there all the time with 30 rounder. Well, YouTube 28s. But the one that's in the rifle when I'm running around amber, it's only got 5 in it. But you're allowed in this state, you're allowed to hunt as small as a 22 caliber. So they're not going to say anything about you going around with 5 in a mag to hunt with if you wanted to. But I usually only have this on in the summertime. Then I have that 1903 out because that's my reach out and put something down with 220 grain core lock. If it could work for Japanese and Germans, it can work for me.
Now, another thing in the realm of that, go like, first Saturday of the month, whatever. Try to do it once a month or so, maybe even more. Just get out there and move with everything, because a lot of your optics that are waterproof might be sprinkle proof, but they also might not be completely just raining
They're
cats
water
and dogs.
resistant.
Yeah, and they might not be. I just fell into a creek proof.
Right.
And you don't know, like, is some of them, right? Like an ACOG. You know that an ACOG is indestructible because some moron handed it to a Marine, and the Marine was just like, rah, 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 rah.
I actually have a
And then they
surprise.
gave it to.
I actually have a surprise coming on the channel. I guess I'll let you guys hear it first, but my nephew just had an ACOG gifted to him, and we are going to go sight in his Ruger with that ACOG, and then I'm going to get to put it through some paces and like review it. So that's coming up pretty soon on my channel, which DJ has already beaten me to, but
No, that's good stuff though. That's good. And the case in point with waterproofing, paint your freaking guns and paint your optics too. And parts of optics that you don't want to paint but can still cover in some way, get some camo form wrap, some self-clean camo form wrap like from Gear Aid, and wrap it, to camouflage it. But painting helps seal.
You
Helps
mean
seal
like
things up.
this?
This is
There you
exactly.
go.
I've got it back here to keep my stock from rattling, and I've got it on my sling. I've got it on my sling attachment points to keep the rattling and shine down there too.
You keep your chin hairs from getting stuck by putting it right there on the
Well,
stock.
that to keep rattle down, yes, absolutely. But painting helps seal things up a little bit too on your optic. I mean, this optic is basically an ACOG competitor clone or just competitor from Primary Arms. It is sound. I've had it out in the suck. It's gotten covered in snow and whatever else, and there's no compromising of leakage. So that is, as you're absolutely on point with that, Chef, saying to go test it, because you don't know how reliable it is until it matters, unless you go out and train and test it. So absolutely.
Yeah. And like, okay, from a marketing standpoint, nobody beats Vortex's return policy, right? You break it, they replace it.
Facts.
What happens when Vortex is no longer a company?
Right.
What happens when you need that optic tomorrow? What happens when you need that optic right now?
Yeah. Thankfully, Vortex ain't going away anytime soon. I toured their facility a couple of months ago in a closed Wounded Warrior Project event. We got a private tour of the facility on a weekend and got to go shoot at the range and stuff. The Vortex Edge range training facility with some of their USPSA team shooters. That was really cool. It was really cool. Awesome facility. they're expanding still. They're not going away anytime soon, thankfully, you know. But yes, they have one of the best return policies on the market as far as that goes, and just repair replacement policies. I use I've got a Vortex Venom scope. I have a Diamondback too, but I don't use it anymore. I don't have anything to put it on because I upgraded to a Venom for my bolt gun. And I've also got one of their UH1 Huey holographics, fantastic optics, and their LPVOs are quality, very well made. That and they just got the NGSW contract for the military, so they ain't going anywhere anytime soon. So
One thing I want to make sure we touch on real quick. Um, for the prepared citizen side of things, for the day-to-day shit, not the shit hit the fan shit, not the cool ass rifles and how the way we want to set them up. Like, not gonna lie, I just ordered some 45-degree Picatinny rail stuff for this rifle so I could put my irons on at a 45.
yeah.
Yes, that rides with me all the time in the vehicle and whatever. That's my shit hits the fan in my work area rifle. But on a day-to-day basis, no matter where I'm at, what I'm doing, or how I'm wearing it, I've got this, and this is my life or death, protect me or anyone in my family weapon. And I feel like it's a little bit more difficult to learn how to shoot the pistol, I guess. I grew up shooting at a very, very young age, so I have no frame of reference for that. So when people say that, it confuses me sometimes. And I have to remember that the rifle might be a little bit easier because it's a whole lot easier to control that recoil, what bit of recoil you get depending on what you're shooting. Mine love to chew up 55 grain in practice, and I'm running that 62 grain green tip in situation. Like, that's what these 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 16 inches are designed for. But on a day to day, I'm in the gas station, I'm walking through the MARTA walls. Someone comes into the shop, it thinks that we're going to have money. I don't understand how that's even a possibility, but that would be super unfortunate for them, since if we're all in the shop, 3 out of 4 of us have a weapon on us. 2 9mm and a 45, like, it's the person's worst possible outcome for robbing a place. You know what I mean? It's not going to be good. But like, you need to consider this. And if you there's places that you can go, you can't fire fast, but you can one shot at a time in a range up to 30, 50 yards, get the feel of it. Learn this first, because protecting yourself and your family starts right here, right? And then almost immediately, if you can, don't go into debt, but almost immediately go to something like this and get started training. And then you can upgrade it as you go to however you want, or maybe you become DJ and you buy FAL and you're just the awesome king of the hill. Um, whatever, sometimes you get lucky, I guess, but you know what I'm saying? You, it's always easier to, well, not easier. I think it's cost effectively better to start now, even with the $500 rifle, and work your way up while you're also learning how to use that weapon, so you know what you need and how you can run it, is the best way to go. You can always bring this with you in a shit hits the fan situation if you want to, but only one of my rigs allows me to carry this easily accessible. One allows me to carry it kind of tucked into a chest. The rest of them go in a butt pack or the day bag. I'm not carrying this thing in a shit hits the fan situation, but we're in a rule of law. This is probably going to be just as close to your best friend as that AR-15 is.
Yeah, and you're
So what
absolutely
you're
right. Oh no, go ahead.
so what you're saying is whether or not you carry a pistol is METT-TC dependent.
Exactly. I I'm not. I honestly, I don't know. Uh, I guess CQB, I might need the pistol should something happen, but I, unless I absolutely have to, I'm kind of going grenade and wait type of situation. Then I am running into a certain nest that I know is going to be waiting for me. And chances are it's going to be up in the ceiling because they think I'm stupid and I'm not going to look up. So that's something else to keep in mind. Like, it's not going to be fun. I don't want to do that shit. So when am I going to need this outside of leaving from work to go home?
Well, and that's the thing, right? So if I were to be in a position where I'm gonna carry a 20-inch rifle, I very well may carry a pistol because all of a sudden I come up to a closet and I don't want to have to wrestle a guy over my 20-inch rifle.
That
Come out,
said, did y'all
fling that.
notice that Brent 0331 just posted a video today talking about various rifle setups and shit? And then he was talking about the bayonets. And I'm like, I'm seriously considering getting a pick mounted bayonet to throw on at least one of these mothers, just because the way he described charging somebody with that blade sticking out is terrifying in itself. And I want to feel that rush just a little bit.
Here's the deal: like if you're gonna do that, you might as well just go full mall warrior and get a underbarrel flamethrower, which is a thing, right? Like, so it's
No,
like,
I
so
was
like,
thinking like bayonet on this bitch and then like the little 37 mil tube, or maybe if I could ever get a 40 mil tube. Come on, dude. Just come at me Rambo style. You know what I'm saying?
I
well,
love
there's this guy on YouTube, and like I keep seeing this shorts. I feel like he's in Hendry County actually,
Oh, God.
and he's always wearing like black multicam, and he's got the ridiculous AR, and he's got the underbarrel flamethrower, and he's just like
I thought you were talking about me
tactics,
for a minute, but I don't
tactics.
own any black camos. Well, that's not
Well,
true.
he's
My
also a very
hunting
large
camo is a
black
little
man.
dark.
yeah, yeah. The security guy. Yeah.
All right, so we got like 8 minutes. I guess we need to start wrapping up our final thoughts on this.
Um,
Apparently, we all agree. The agreeing synopsis is it's METT-TC. As much as we hate to say that,
I mean, it is.
It's important.
There are some things that are universal, relatively universal across the board, and then there's some things that yes is very specific to your area, your environmental conditions, how you intend to conduct yourself. There's a lot of other stipulations to it, but a final point too with the pistol, you're absolutely right, because yeah, that's the one thing anybody who's carrying is a fucking pistol every day. So you're going to have that on you inevitably at some point or another. Um, if not all the time anyway. So you again with METT-TC stuff, you're going to be in your vehicle reliant. When we talk about disasters and things like that, how's your pistol going to come into play with that? You're probably going to have it on you or in your vehicle when you're in your vehicle. So apart from that and other, again, METT-TC stipulations and nuances when it comes to a shorter barrel platform or pistol caliber carbine, PDW, whatever it may be, there's that applicability there. But yeah, you're always going to have a pistol on you to some extent. And even if it's with you when you're bugging out and you've got your full battle rattle, it's going to get stashed somewhere, right? Or it's going to stay at your PB or your homestead where somebody's going to utilize it and have it on them in that context. So a very good point there to make, man. So that was on point. That was on point. But overall, yeah, absolutely. It all depends, but also F, some things are universal across the board, especially for applicability in keeping and maintaining an unfair advantage and sound TTPs and practice for yourself in wherever you may find yourself. So
Yeah. So I guess my thoughts are, whatever you have is probably 90% correct. But if you have nothing, right? Back to what I said, um, get the longest, like my opinion, try to go longer rather than shorter. Spend equal money on the rifle as you do the optic, and your not your stash pile ammo, but your initial like training ammo. And learn that weapon. And if you're a vet and you were in Iraq back in 04, and you haven't really played around with guns in a while, that applies to you too. Like you might remember some stuff, but you've also lost a lot of your automaticity there. And so you just really need to be aware of those things. You need to be aware, that you've lost a lot of your mechanics, and that's fine. You can get those back, but I'm gonna say, LPVOs, because you can go with that edge reticle. I'm gonna say go with the edge reticle. I'm gonna say second focal plane. And if once again, if you're in an area where you need armor and you need an 11.5 inch because you have to be able to move in and out of tight spaces and in and out of vehicles, and you think things are going to get really bad to where you need that rifle, you also need to leave.
Facts.
Right? I did.
Facts.
Like trees. I'm no longer in Norfolk.
Right.
Right? I'm no longer in a major metropolitan area.
Yeah.
Right? I'm no longer in Atlanta. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Right?
That's great, ain't it?
And so all of a sudden, plate carriers became a whole lot less important. Short rifles became a whole lot less important, and it builds upon itself, right? So you leave that area, you no longer need the 11.5 inch, so you go directly to a 16, maybe a 20, and now putting 77 grain, 77 grain can now fly out of that 20 and give you more standoff. And so little things, a bunch of little things turn into a big thing, and all of a sudden your survivability skyrockets because you start making a lot of really small, good decisions.
Yes.
One thing, and this is debatable, I'm gonna say if you go to 20, you might as well go with a full fixed buttstock. Maybe not an A2, but maybe a Magpul or something. I like the Magpul because it has the embedded QD thing, and slings are important. But also just the simple fact that butt stroking somebody could bend your gas tube. And that's something people don't think about. But I'm being 100% serious. If you have to go full gangster, I think it's the Pulse, and you get them on Palmetto State. Go ahead and get you an underbarrel flamethrower, right? I may die in this, but so are you.
What you need to do is just get you a shotgun and mount the flamethrower too, so you can just be the ultimate Geneva Convention rule breaker and just fucking go in with shotguns and damn flamethrowers going.
Little quick funny story. I was rolling with some Marines, and they had the M500? It's the Mossberg shotgun. And at the time, it was only allowed to open up doors because it was considered too devastating. And we walk in, and without being prompted, he goes, "I thought that man was a door." And it's like, you thought that man's face was a door? Okay, I'm down with it. And just so you know what the face looked like, it didn't.
Right.
It didn't look like anything because it didn't exist anymore. He took an eraser to that man's face.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
But yeah, honestly, the more I think about it, the best thing I did as far as getting ready for what's coming was moving, and getting into an area where you can start doing ag work.
Yep.
Proper
planning prevents piss poor performance and safety.
Yeah. Yep. And the other thing that really makes me think about this is being married now. So it's a lot different when you're rolling around on little birds with your homies, compared to when you're running around with your wife. But we're down to less than a minute, and I just spoke for 5, so my bad. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of how I feel. Also, I don't know if pistols are necessary in most situations.
Besides the everyday.
Yeah. When things happen, pistols aren't super important in my opinion.
Right. Agreed.
Well, like we like to say, guys, because I'm going to get my plug in there. Make sure you stay ready so you don't have to get ready. I know everybody gets tired of hearing that, or at least I get tired of saying that, but that doesn't just mean weapons. That means food. That means ammunition. That means taking care of your family. I think we're all in a general consensus with that.
Yep. Metal up.
I will see you.